you still got 2 more years as Hitler.
If you're the hobo, do you have a place to sleep, like an underpass, or...
Different every night.
As Hitler, can I change certain policies so that maybe I'm looked on more favorably at the end of the war?
No, you already screwed up big time. A lot of dead Jews.
Am I a blue state or a red state hobo?
Blue, but Midwestern blue.
It's cold out there.
Am I allowed to alter the mustache?
Dude, why do you keep trying to make Hitler work?
Am I allowed to kill other hobos to increase my odds?
Kill anyone you like. You're a hobo.
Am I a walking hobo?
No, Quagmire and Cleveland are, but you're not.
So wait, I would also be a paralyzed Hitler?
Yeah.
Would I be a black Hitler?
Yes. No.
Oh, well, wait a minute. Now, how come I gotta be crippled Hitler and he's still white Hitler?
If you got such a problem with it, Joe, just beat a hobo.
This one isn't very fun.
Would you rather be a hobo with a 5...
And we are back. What is this, episode 6, I think?
Is it already?
I think so. Pretty sure the last one we did was episode 5.
The arsonist has oddly shaped feet.
The wombat walks with women in Washington.
The Human Torch was denied a bank loan.
I gotta watch that movie again, man. It's been way too long. I got a list of movies that mentally I can kind of like, I need to go back and watch that. I need to go back and watch that. And I just haven't had the time lately. But I've got that list there. So,
well, we're jumping off with movies. Why don't we check in?
Yeah,
Did you watch Network?
Not yet.
Never mind then. We'll have to skip it.
All right. That's fair.
I did watch End of Watch.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Did you like the scene?
It took me like 4 days.
Really?
Of like 30 minutes. No. I just like keep turning it on while I'm doing things,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not super deep, right? It's not a super deep film or anything like that. It's Jake Gyllenhaal and the dude, the other guy they played in Chips, the new version of Chips.
Yeah, he was in Fury.
Yeah, he's in Fury. I like him. But I mean, it's just good entertainment value. As I popped it, I'm gonna try to low key pop this in, but I cannot be as cool as RFK during the Senate.
Wait, he did it during the Senate?
Yes.
No,
dude, I saved it. I saved it, the clip. Yeah, so he's there in his suit. He's for the Secretary of Health and Human Services. He's going through the committee. Where basically, everyone's grilling him, and he's sitting there. And I mean, this clip was so smooth. He goes like this over his mouth, and he pulls it out, and then he reaches to his inside pocket and drops it in there. And then like 2 seconds, well, not 2 seconds later, but a few seconds later, he comes back up to his mouth like this, and then his tongue pushes it down into the
no way,
dude. Yeah.
Well, he's an addict.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean,
a lot.
Addicts.
Well, no. What I'm saying is like, in my limited experience, a lot of addicts smoke after they kick their habit.
Sure.
Yeah. So he's not going to smoke.
No,
but he'll take an uppy-decky.
Oh, he'll take an uppy-decky. Sure. I'll do uppy-decky. I used to smoke. And under the right circumstances, with the right people and enough alcohol, I will still have a drag or two here and there.
So I was thinking about this actually today.
Cigars. I'll still have a cigar once in a while, a couple times a year.
You know how weird it was that for like a brief period of human history, just everybody smoked everywhere you went?
I don't think it was. I mean, I think it's weird to think about now. But if you would have asked me that 20 years ago, I wouldn't have thought it was weird. Because a lot more people smoked back then.
But if anybody asked you 200 years ago, that would have been like, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, because there's no real...
There weren't like cigarettes everywhere.
Right.
Like, so tobacco was around, but cigarettes and mass, like easy access to cigarettes, it was a relatively short time ago.
Sure.
And then it was like everywhere you went, all the time, people were smoking.
Sure. Yeah.
And then now, if you were to, I don't know why I was thinking about this, but how weird it would be if you were giving a presentation and you just like lit a cigarette in the middle of the presentation.
Yeah.
And everybody would be like, what the hell is he doing? But you're right. Like 20 years ago, everybody would have been like, oh man, I could go for a cigarette.
Sure. I mean, I remember my ex-father-in-law used to travel a lot for his job, and he would oftentimes plan layovers. Like if he was going East Coast to West Coast, he would plan layovers intentionally so that he could get off the plane for an hour. He even knew which airports had the best smoking lounges and all that kind of stuff, just so he could get off, have a couple of cigarettes, and then get on the next flight. Back then they didn't really have any, other than dip, they didn't really have any alternative nicotine vehicles like today. Today you can sneak into a bathroom and hit a vape, or like we have Zens, and
I mean, they had Nicorette, but even Nicorette wasn't like a thing until the 90s.
True. And
I mean, that's my memory is the 90s.
Yeah, I forget about Nicorette. That's true.
Yeah.
But I just mean like I think slowly as a society we've kind of accepted that, like, hey, nicotine and caffeine are kind of things that fuel the morning and the day and keep things irregular. So we're going to try to find more unique ways to deliver caffeine or nicotine. I mean, think about it. Like all the products in a gas station, like between like Monsters and Red Bulls, coffee, obviously, but all these different, Celsius and all these drinks are basically just vehicles to get caffeine in your bloodstream. And now behind the counter, you've got all the different variations of Zens. They're basically the pouches, right?
Do you have to be 18 to buy the caffeine pouches?
I don't know.
Or in Colorado, it's 21 to buy nicotine.
Right. I've seen a lot more of these being advertised, the caffeine or pick-me-up Zen pouch style, but they don't have tobacco or I guess nicotine in it, right? They're caffeine, or they have like vitamin supplement. I don't know, something to give you energy,
Yeah.
They claim to, at least.
Yeah. I think it's funny that we keep trying to push the age further and further out. Like at some point they're going to be like, no, you have to be 25 to.
Well, yeah. And also not just with that, but driving. Kids have to be much older now. It used to be when I was a kid, you could get your permit at 15, and I think 15 and a half maybe. And you get your driver's license at 16. And once you had your license, I don't even think there was any kind of limitations on because I remember when I got my license, I used to drive you and our sister around all the time, almost the next day. Now it's like,
I do remember when I was 14 that there were discussions in California about license restrictions for teenagers.
Provisional kind of thing or whatever.
Like you couldn't drive with other kids in your car.
Right. Or yeah, because that was the first one they rolled out, right? Was like you could only have a passenger in your car if they were a licensed driver over the age of 21, I think.
Or a sibling.
Or a sibling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So funny enough, my first accident happened with a friend in the car, and probably because my friend was in the car. So
distracting you.
It's not outside the realm of possibility that having distractions in the car is a bad idea for teenage drivers. However, I do not agree with any laws around it. So
right. Well, no, but anyways, you we're talking about nicotine. Alcohol's always been 21, I think, for the most part. Some states.
No, it was
actually no, it's not true.
18.
But 18.
Yeah.
But I mean, just generally speaking, you kind of know, like to go into a bar or whatever, it's 21 or up or whatever. Generally, I know there's certain states and whatever that have different 18 and up laws, but you don't have to be of any age to alter your biology.
Well, interestingly enough, as a parent, you can give in Colorado, you can give your kid as much alcohol as you want, as
they should.
As long as you're not crossing some level of like abuse line.
Sure, yeah.
But I went and read the statute one time, and yeah, as the parent or guardian, there's no restriction on giving your kids alcoholic beverages.
A little drinky drink for
A
bedtime.
little drinky poo for bedtime. Something to make the teeth stop hurting.
Yeah, exactly. A little bourbon on the gums, you know.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Well, I think it's like this general idea of safety. You know, we can legislate safety, and we can make sure that everybody makes good decisions if we just put the right laws in place.
Yeah, because the laws will definitely change people's behaviors for sure.
Yeah,
100% works all the time.
Well, and another issue of using laws to do that stuff is it takes away the ownership of responsibility and risk,
Right.
which I think is an overall detriment. It's not that bad things don't happen when kids, get behind the wheel or drink alcohol or whatever. But if we as a society put the responsibility on the laws rather than ourselves and our job as parents and stuff, overall, we generally start to look to the state to keep us safe.
Right.
Rather than looking to ourselves.
I rely on the state to keep me safe.
I mean,
I try
they have
to rely
such a
on
good
them
track
to
record.
make sure nobody breaks in my home. And if they do, the state is there to protect me.
Yeah. Well, we'll make a law that says breaking in is against the law.
Right. That'll stop it.
Yeah.
And then I don't even have to worry
actually,
about
you see this happen when you watch these videos of road rage.
I just was watching one not 15 minutes ago.
Oh, yeah.
Actually. Yeah.
So I don't know if it happened in the video, but you could tell me if it happened in the video you were watching. And people, they do two things a lot of times. One, they'll have a camera in the car, or they have their camera out, and they'll say, "I'm recording you."
Right.
And then the next thing they'll do is tell you that what you're doing is either against the law,
right.
or, like, instead of just focusing on the problem that you have an irate driver in your face who's thinking about hurting you, you're like, well, that's against the law.
Right.
Right.
Right. So the video I was watching was two guys on Harleys. I don't know.
Two guys on a Harley.
Yeah, there were two guys each on their own Harley.
Sounds right.
And they were, I don't know if there's an elderly guy driving this red, looked like a Toyota Corolla or something, and his wife is in the car, probably late 60s, early 70s. He might have, maybe he did drift into a lane or something. I don't know what happened beforehand. But all of a sudden, these guys start swerving around him. And this is all from the POV of another car behind them recording it, saying these guys are trying to run this guy off the road. The motorcycle guys now are like retaliating, right? Now, maybe the guy did make a mistake. But now they're blocking him at an intersection. So they've parked their vehicles kind of like on the corners in the front of his vehicle. One guy gets off of his motorcycle and starts walking up over to the door.
Mm-hmm.
Old guy steps out, draws what appears to be a small pistol caliber, like a 380 auto or something pistol, points it at him. Doesn't shoot, but he does point it at him. And the guy's like immediately going to a defensive posture, right? And the people that are recording like, oh crap, and they're on the phone with the police. A random fire engine happens to be driving by, and now the Harley guys are trying to stop it. Now the guy has retreated back to his vehicle. He's no longer pointing the car. This is before even the fire engine rolled up. Like, he was basically like, okay, they're backing away. He's trying to now get back in his car. He wants to leave this situation.
Mm-hmm.
These guys were definitely harassing him, but I don't know what happened before. But there doesn't seem to be any contact that happened. Just maybe he cut one off, didn't see him. Who knows? I don't know this whole story. But from this perspective, now the Harley drivers are reaching out to the firemen to stop and be the victim in the situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the guy in the red car, while they're talking to the fire, he's like, now's my time to get away. And he kind of like backs up a little bit and then takes off. And the guy on his Harley jumps back on and takes off after him like he's like in a vigilante justice or run him down or something. And the thing it's like, none of those parties, except one motorcycle guy was recording, the one that stayed on his motorcycle, not the one that got off. So there was a POV footage of him, and there was POV footage and I was like, how did someone get both of these to splice them together? I'm not really sure. Maybe something came of it. But all to say is the old guy did feel threatened. I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm not trying to dissect the legality of it. It's just that these guys definitely did not expect this old geezer to get out of the car and just point a pistol at their chest.
With 500 million guns in this country, I don't know how you go around in traffic believing that everybody doesn't have a gun. I know that everybody doesn't have a gun, but the chances you're going to run into somebody who does is pretty reasonably high.
Yes. Yeah, I would think so. Living in 2 states, I always think that other people besides myself are likely carrying, and
especially in their car, which is where a lot of people do carry because they'll leave the gun in the car.
Sure. A lot of them will keep it in the console or the glove box. And you and I are the type of people that carry on our person probably more often than a lot of other people. But I just assume that all my data will be breached and that anyone might be carrying a firearm.
Yeah.
It makes me a very polite driver. If someone cuts me off, I don't retaliate. I just, number one, because have you ever heard a positive story of anyone being like, well, so there I was in a road rage incident, and then we actually ended up becoming best of friends, and now we're hanging out doing barbecues.
or I won. Like even just saying I won.
The only thing that's going to win you is a lawsuit. That's the only thing it will ever win you. And you have the...
And do you really win at the end of that?
Nobody ever wins, man.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of a lawsuit, even if you win the judgment, was that worth all the effort that you put into that?
Of course not.
No.
You'd rather just not ever have to deal with that ever.
Yeah.
So anytime you can avoid court is a good day.
Well, I mean, I get why people get upset, but you have to be the kind of person who can feel upset for a moment and then decide that it's not as important as getting to where you want to go to, I mean, the thing is like, you're never going to get everybody. Like there's totally unhinged people out there and you can't tell everybody like, just calm down. But the people who can calm down should probably be reminded at some point that you should calm down.
Right.
Because there are people out there who are completely unreasonable and would be more than happy to run you off the road, to destroy your car, to hurt you. And,
Well, and what's amazing to me, and I've always been fascinated by this concept about the road rage situation, is that when people are in their cars, somehow, regardless of your real world fighting capabilities, skills, any of that stuff, in their cars, they feel invincible. They'll do things that you wouldn't do in a grocery store. If someone cuts you off with your grocery cart in the grocery store by coming around the corner, didn't see you, it's always sorry, didn't see you there.
No, you're good. Oh, you're good.
We almost had a fender bender. You almost like joke about it. I'm like, well, I hope you got good insurance. Kind of it's a joke. But in the real world, on the streets and the cars, like the car somehow creates this false sense of security that you are invincible, or because you're surrounded by metal and wheels.
Well, I think also, and I know I heard this from somebody else, but I don't remember who, is the idea that when you're in the car, you inherently understand that this is more dangerous, that, like you're going faster, there's more steel and rubber and plastic, like, so your brain subconsciously understands that the stakes are higher for when a mistake happens, the stakes are higher. It's expensive. Just being expensive alone.
Sure. Do you think that part of that drives the desire because it almost makes you feel like alive?
I don't know.
And
I mean,
few people have those moments in their life every day.
You know what it does? I think it makes you feel tough.
But I mean, it's a dopamine hit.
Right. Like, and I think that's kind of like what you're saying, feeling alive, right. Like feeling tough, like, oh, I told them, or, I was ready to run them off the road, or I did actually try to hit somebody with my car one time.
I want to hear that.
I had this like piece of shit Geoprism that had a really low power band. Like this thing just had no power at all. And so I was getting ready to turn right out of a parking lot, and I needed to get over to the left-hand turn lane, which means I needed to cross 4 lanes of traffic.
Oh, I hate
to
those
get
scenarios.
into the left-hand turn lane. So I didn't just need a break in the traffic. I needed a huge break.
You needed a big gap, and a gap like big enough for your car, which probably didn't have a lot of power, to
Right.
scoot across all those lanes of traffic to get into
Right.
the left-hand turn lane.
And the speed limit on this road's like 50 miles an hour. So,
Okay.
you know, if there's traffic coming, it's coming fast.
Sure.
And so I'm just waiting for my chance. And this car behind me got sick of me waiting, which, you know, I mean, we've all been in that position, like,
Yeah.
go. And so I'm not going. And so she goes around me right at the moment when I decided I was going to go. And so I had already started moving. And
She
then
go around you to the left side?
she
or
came around
right
the left side. Yeah.
So now you have to get another barrier that might be impeding you to get to that.
Well, not really.
Okay.
No, because my car was so weak that the moment I saw her coming around me, I just gassed it as hard as I could. And I still couldn't catch her to hit her.
Oh my gosh.
Like
that's funny.
I tried to broadside her car and I wasn't fast enough.
Now, was that because in the back of your mind, you knew you probably had the right, like, a way?
No, I was just mad.
You're just mad.
I was just like, how could you do that?
Were you in your 20s or your 30s?
I was in my 20s.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I was a professionally employed person. I was not, you know, a college student.
Sure.
I had a wife and kids, but, you know, I knew nobody was going to get hurt. You know, it's
Isn't
like
it amazing how your mind can make those decisions so quickly.
I know.
Evaluate risk and everything, and yet still commit to something. Like
right.
that.
And in that moment, you're like, you're calculating, hit her.
You know that meme of Julia Roberts with all the floating like formulas around her, like calculating it? It's like you have that moment, all happens in a split second.
Yeah. Now, that was before I started carrying a gun.
Okay.
I started carrying a gun not that long after that.
Okay.
And I had another road rage incident not that long after I started carrying a gun. And that was the last real road rage incident that I was ever in, where I got angry and acted out of anger.
Okay.
And, you know, it was just honking and yelling at each other. Like nobody got out of their cars. But
right
in the middle of that confrontation, I realized, hey, idiot, you have a gun in the car.
Right.
You should stop doing this right now. And actually, funny enough, the whole interaction ended with me laughing because the guy said something that turned out to be really funny. And I just like laughed and rolled up my window. I was like, okay, that was funny. And
did he just had a good one-liner or something?
Yeah. Because he cut me off in an intersection and I was screaming at him. I was like, what the fuck was that? And he goes, it was a maneuver. And I was like, that's a good line. That's a good line.
I do remember you telling me that story now.
Yeah.
Before, because when you do mention that, it reminds me of that Eddie Izzard line.
Oh yeah,
where Eddie Izzard is a transvestite comedian and he's funny as hell, and he's talking about being Dr. Heimlich, you know, and he's like he's pretending to like be him, and you know, comes home from work. And his wife's like, you know, how was your day at the office? And he's like, oh, it's good. You know, I have invented a maneuver. I don't know why. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
It was a maneuver. That's funny. I was inverted.
So you want to hear about this is totally not what I planned on talking about.
Sure.
But when you said that, it reminded me of something. You want to hear about one of the craziest days at work anybody has ever had in the history of work?
Is this like a micro dirty jobs thing, or
no,
just something that a personal experience?
No, not personal experience.
Oh, okay.
Just something that actually happened.
Albert
Hoffman. Do you know who Albert Hoffman is?
Is he the guy that kind of discovered LSD?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And he was in the lab and he accidentally synthesized LSD, and he got a little he got a little in him or on him. And he
maybe touched it, got it in his skin or something.
And he felt some effects of that, and he said, that's interesting. So the next day he goes into the lab and he synthesizes it again, and he takes I think it was 500 milligrams. He like put it into a pill, and he took 500 milligrams. Well, I don't know, for those of you who don't know about LSD, active doses are measured in micrograms.
Right, micrograms. Gonna say, yeah.
So this guy took essentially the equivalent of like 5,000 hits of acid before anybody knew what acid was. and he proceeded to
Didn't he ride
try
his
to ride his bike home.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and he had a 2-day almost sanity destroying trip. But that just goes to show you that LSD is not toxic.
Well, you won't die. You won't die from it's the same with marijuana. You know,
I think marijuana has a higher toxicity level than LSD. Like it is possible
but from
to.
what I've heard and what I've read is that it's almost physically impossible to consume the amounts.
You're right.
Toxic.
Yeah.
Before you would just pass out.
And me as a scientist clearly knows how to answer this question.
I'm a scientist as well. Yeah, I'm a scientist of Wikipedia and the internet.
So Albert Hoffman came home from work that day, and his wife probably asked him, "How was your day?" To which he probably replied,
Dude, did he even make it home?
He did make it home. Yeah, I think he had a 5-mile or 5-kilometer bike ride home.
Oh my gosh. Could you imagine trying to navigate? He might have thought he was flying home. I mean, like, what? Like,
Yeah.
It's really unfathomable. And has anyone else ever done a dose like that?
Not on purpose, I'm sure. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's talk about how crazy the last 2 weeks have been.
I was wondering what you were going to come with, and I figured that's probably what it was. And I'm prepared.
Okay.
To throw in some of my 2 cents.
So my initial reaction to this is,
and just for context. This is February 6th. So
right.
We are not even a full month into the new administration.
16 days.
Or 16 days.
Yeah.
A little over 2 weeks of the administration, the new Trump
47 Savage.
Yeah. Administration and all the changes that have come about in the last couple of weeks from mostly through executive actions.
Almost exclusively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some which have been found, unconstitutional.
So what is your gut reaction as a whole to the last 16 days?
Okay, so I'm going to start at the beginning with the inauguration that had me very, I don't know if concern is the right word, but suspect.
Mm-hmm.
Is because you had the CEO of every major big tech corporation in the United States at the inauguration.
Mm-hmm.
This is including Tim Cook from Apple. What's his face? I always forget his name from Google.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Zuckerberg from Meta. Obviously, Elon Musk is a given. Bezos from
Bezos' wife.
Bezos' wife, which it was pretty funny to see all the memes of Zuck catching a look at those knockers, So okay,
she was like the inspiration for Kanye's wife's Grammy appearance.
I actually saved a screenshot.
She's like, I could do better than that.
Yeah, I saved a screenshot of someone who posted the actual image because they were blurred out everywhere because she's fully nude under this leotard, this transparent leotard, and so it started there for me, right? Because me and my other hobbies and my other side things that I do as it relates to technology specifically, it kind of had me at least aware of like, well, okay, something's going on here. There's a changing of the guard. We all know that, but there is definitely a shift in alignment from the big tech industry. Why is Tim Cook of Apple there?
So I'm just going to ask the rhetorical question. I don't really believe one way or the other, but let me just ask the rhetorical question. Why wouldn't they be there?
Because historically, though they might individually be more leaning left or right, they haven't necessarily done things like go on the Rogan podcast to change the position of their platform of their business model.
Maybe change a little history too.
Change of history, change of perception.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an interesting thing, and I'm gonna get to this in a second because I don't know if you know, but the Kansas Attorney General his spearheading the a multi-state lawsuit against Pfizer and Moderna for the vaccine.
I did not hear this.
Excuse me. Yeah, I'll play a clip in just a minute. That will come into play in a second because it does play into this. If you go back to the pandemic with Twitter, and not just the vaccines, but there was other stuff going on, like the Hunter Biden laptop that got squashed. That all this information on these platforms were being suppressed, censored, or completely deleted. And now,
Well, I mean, they banned Trump from Twitter.
They banned Trump from Twitter.
I mean, that was like the culmination, because that was January 7th or January 6th he got banned.
People could say, well, since then Elon Musk has purchased Twitter, and so okay, fine, that's fine. But Facebook, aka Meta, was also banning, deleting, censoring, suppressing information. I have some other information too that I didn't even have in my notes that I want to tell you about later about Cambridge Analytica that I read today, and then the NSSF, kind of interesting stuff. But yeah, so now there's this. I was actually texting with one of our mutual friends, one of your best friends, JK. I won't say his name. Last night, because we're both training for this marathon we're doing in August, and we're talking about politics and stuff like that, and we were talking about this kind of stuff, and I was like, basically the way I visualize it is in my life watching changing of the guards, meaning administrations and the Senate and the House going back and forth from red to blue, red to blue, red to blue, right? Is this pendulum, and it's swinging back and forth. But as we start going through these changes, rather than it slowing down and getting more narrow to the center, it's swinging heavier in one direction, both in the left and the right. And on the left side, you might look at it as like this extreme wokeism, DEI, this stuff that basically is prioritizing the numbers of equality on a spreadsheet versus like qualified candidates for jobs, especially very important ones like ATC, FAA, pilots, whatever, right? Where people's lives are in their hands. It's going further up this way. And then on the other side, we're seeing it like this, where it's like, why are all these tech billionaires who are in control of basically billions of people's interactions online, buddying up? Like, so what I'm saying is, when you say, haven't we always seen this? It's like, yes, we kind of have, but I feel like it's getting more extreme, more extreme, more extreme. And so that's where I'm kind of going, like, at some point, this pendulum is going to break off.
Yeah, go flying across the room.
Go flying across the room.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I'm seeing this is like, well, where are we at in the swing? Is it starting to be in the upper right? Is it all kind of more towards the extended part? Like, where are we? And we're only 2 weeks in, so it's hard to.
Well, so I kind of look at this in the context of 9/11 and the rise of the modern security state in the United States and the world, but really the focus on the United States, where we have a reason, right? The reason was the terrorist attack. We have a reason to go overboard with everything, with every single level of law enforcement and security and tearing down of rights and all of that stuff. People forget that, a few of the members that are on the current Supreme Court wrote decisions back in 2004 and 2005 and 2006 to dismantle the Fourth Amendment, to give you not the right to remain silent, to take away your right to privacy in the name of national security. And the people, and I remember this because I had these arguments with people a lot at the time. If you were a Republican, you were on board with this. If you were a Democrat, you probably weren't on board with this. And you were a pussy, and you were probably a communist, and you hated America, and you loved terrorists because you cared more about the Constitution than you cared about the country not getting attacked by terrorists.
Right.
And the argument that some people raised at the time was, if you are in favor of bending and breaking the rules for this reason, you have to be aware that at some point in the future, this power is going to be in the hands of people you don't agree with. And what happened? Obama.
Right.
And Obama took that power further. Not a lot further. It's kind of like to your pendulum analogy. He took it a little bit further.
A little bit. It's like this incremental swing out.
But
right?
one of the things he did was he started weaponizing the bureaucracies against his political opponents. We all remember the IRS going after the teabaggers.
Might as well be the teabaggers.
And Christians and stuff like that. And then Trump gets elected and it sort of swings back the other way. Although Trump clearly took a different approach in his first 4 years, which he talked about on the Rogan podcast, about why he went with that strategy and how he wasn't happy with it. And then we get Biden, and Biden swings the pendulum back the other way. And Biden starts doing things from the executive desk that we would not normally have expected or accepted. Let's say George Bush Jr. did what Biden did in the year 2000. Like, we would not have accepted that. That was, and then at the end of Biden's presidency, he just goes ahead and just pardons like everybody.
Well, pardon them for future
crimes. So that's the pendulum creeping a little bit further.
Like, how do you pardon someone who hasn't been convicted of anything?
Right. And why?
And why?
Right.
Including Fauci.
Right. And so what he said was that he was worried about political prosecutions of these people, which, guess what, is happening. Right. So he couldn't pardon every single FBI agent and everybody in the DOJ and everybody at the Treasury. But, so he pardons a few thousand people, and the people on the right,
including his family,
and the people on the right, you can't do that. You said you weren't going to do that. That's wrong. That's not what the power of the pardon is for.
He's on his way out and you don't give a shit about
he don't
what
care.
He said in the past.
He doesn't care. It was probably not even him. It was probably Jill.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
So you're right. Now the pendulum is not just swaying further; it's picking up a lot of speed.
No, it's almost like not only is it picking up speed, but it's almost like the pendulum's getting heavier. So the mass of the force of it,
like
is
the
almost
impact,
increasing. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if you just picture yourself, if you are listening to this and you consider yourself a Republican, a conservative, a pro-Trump person, just ask yourself the level of executive orders, the level of power that Trump is using with his executive orders. If Biden had done the same thing, but in the opposite way, basically using the same power, but to do the opposite actions, would you accept that as constitutional, as moral, as right? And I'm not answering the question. I'm not trying to, but just ask yourself, let's say let's say Vance does not win in 2028, and let's say we get Gavin Newsom as president. Are you as a Republican going to be comfortable with Gavin Newsom acting like Trump?
Right. Something to consider.
And I mean, I'm saying this as somebody who really wants to see the bureaucratic state completely disassembled. Somebody who wants to see the DOJ pared down to 10% of what it is. Somebody who wants to see the Treasury pared down to 10%, who wants USAID to be gone. I like a lot of the outcomes of what's happening. I am very nervous about the way it's happening.
Right.
And it could be completely constitutional, but try explaining that to the average person. They don't care.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest area where people are creating a lot of huff over, I don't know if that's the right term, is the immigration stuff. Like, that's what I see. And it could be part of the algorithm echo chamber that's serving me that. But it seems to be the one that's really impacting people that are not even directly involved.
I'll tell you, the one I see is Musk as the unelected oligarch. That's the thing I keep seeing.
I would say that's up there as well. I don't know which one's more. I think it probably flip flops day to day. What all the news what the news outlets are putting out. But ICE showing up and grabbing people and throwing them in deportation buses and all this stuff is one area, and then the second is the Musk thing, and that concerns me too because I have my own reservations about Musk that basically stem back to what I think and what I believe from other. This isn't my own original thought.
Mm-hmm.
Is, he's always wanted a tech platform that was kind of like the WeChat of China that he could oversee, and
that essentially controls almost all of your digital life,
including like bill payment, money transfer. And if you follow what X is doing with money transmittal license applications in each state, because you have to do that in order, if you want to be a Cash App or a Square or a Venmo, you have to have money transmittal licenses for all of users to be able to transmit funds from user to user. And so X is doing that. So X has also been pushing the premium model. They've been trying to get people to KYC themselves, which is basically what banks do, right? Your customer by verifying your identity with the platform so that your account is verifiable to you as an individual, as a real person who exists. So no anonymous account, so to speak. And I think that maybe in the back of his mind, and this is complete conjecture and theory, that in the back of his mind, he might be thinking that X could be the platform where even voting eventually takes place. Where you could vote from your verified account digitally. And
he's clearly a futurist.
Yeah.
And I'm very skeptical and wary of futurists because I think they're unstoppable. So I'm not really
I think you're on the right track. I think that I think that's probably a really good way to explain it because they're willing to overlook things like Fourth Amendments and civil rights and constitutionality of implementation of these things to get to the end goal, because in their minds they're convinced that it's better for the even if we hurt some people along the way as collateral damage, it's still good it's the greater good, so to speak. And for humanity's sake.
Right.
It's more like, we've seen this with like Bill Gates. And with education and technology is like, well, you got to sacrifice a few for the good of the
right,
many.
which is much essentially all boils down to like a utopian vision.
Sure,
because
it's just that Musk has a much more focused execution style or strategy.
Yeah,
than some of these other...
he is like the perfect weapon right now.
Yeah, for sure.
And
here's the thing, though, too, to back this up just a little bit. You're talking to kind of addressing the Republicans, and I agree with your statement. To the Democrats, why is there not more outrage from the Democrats over this undemocratic process of ramming through a candidate who was not voted on? You could have easily had the Rogan and Musk's at least more leaning to the left than this extreme to the right, but you blew it. You blew it like by miles, and I think that could have been handled much differently. And it seems like the Democrats still are not getting on the same page. I'm watching clips from this, like, DNC election for a new chair, and I'm like,
everybody
where
saw
do they
that.
pull these people from? Like, I mean, it's mind boggling. Is like, this is the party that you're subscribing to, and they are more lost now. I mean, I probably identify more as like a mid 90s liberal Democrat than I do a 2025 Democrat or Republican. And in context of what you were saying, is I'm thinking more like the old school Democrat, ACLU,
old school ACLU,
right? Old school, right?
Old school anti-war, old school,
Correct.
pro civil rights, and
yes, very much so.
Yeah,
I could probably be on board with a larger percentage of their stance on these social issues. I mean, we don't have to get into the fiscal stuff, but on the social issues, than I could on the Republican side. And now I'm like, I don't even know what the platforms even really are. Yeah,
I think that's another consequence of this is I think it's hard to, at least for me, to visualize and describe exactly, but a further fracturing of what it means to be a party person, a Democrat, a Republican.
Right.
Because, you know, like are you a MAGA Republican? Are you a conservative? Are you a right leaning liberal? Are you like all these things? Because
now
everybody
centrist
wants
is
to
used a lot more. you know.
everybody seems to want to identify, and I shouldn't say everybody, because you have to remember pretty much all of these interactions are happening online. And I would actually venture a guess that most people do not actually engage online with politics.
I would probably agree with that. Yeah.
But
that
the online
you're seeing and hearing the 5 or 7%.
Yeah.
That's being amplified.
But that is the vocal 5 to 7%.
It is.
So when people say the people, they're talking about the people who are online.
And this has been demonstrated just from this past election that we went through with the projected winning and percentages by the polls, which were off by magnitudes, not margins of error,
So
magnitudes.
I think there is one positive outcome from this, which is, and this may be me being completely unrealistically optimistic, but maybe people are becoming more issue focused than party focused.
Yeah, that's a tough way to represent people.
Well, here's an example of
people excited about.
Here's an example of how this could work if things were working properly. We're in Colorado. Colorado is facing some pretty significant anti-gun legislation, and Colorado, the House and Senate it's almost a supermajority of Democrats over Republicans in the legislature. I fully believe, and I don't think I'm just being optimistic about this. I think this is very realistic. I fully believe that there are plenty of Democratic gun owners in the state who do not agree with this legislation. And if we could somehow get those people to actually speak up to their own representatives within their own party and say, I do not support this. I support you as a candidate, but if you keep passing this stuff, I will vote for somebody else. You have a responsibility to the citizens to protect the people that you are, representing, and this doesn't do that. If 10% of the Democratic base, which is, I think, easily represented as gun owners within the Democratic Party, would just speak to their representatives, this legislation would stop.
I think you're 100% right. I think it is becoming more issue. Just as there are maybe people who identify as a Republican would support gay marriage, would support even maybe abortion, or at least pro-choice, or within a, they might be more
within a parameter.
Within a parameter. But what I'm saying is there's a lot of convergence on issues where people who identify from both parties can agree on. And I think that's probably something that needs to be more an area of focus than just this extreme draw the line in the sand. And
could be because there's more transparency. That could be the reason why. There's more information available. We get to see when candidates are being hypocritical or lying.
And how they're voting. And also, too, like how they're corrupt, and those that are actually in the influence of power. I forget her name. So she's a senator in Minnesota who just bought a ton of stock in some company that's only got a market cap of like 400 million. That's winning some sort of state contract and this and that and the other. The guy that runs the Pelosi tracker put out a video on that. I watched it. I don't follow all their investment advice or anything. I just like to keep a pulse on it. And I'm like, yeah, this is fucked up, man. You shouldn't be. That is insider trading. It is 100% insider trading. They're not held to the same laws that everyone else is. They, and just supporting that transparency conversation, because so much of this data is available. You just have to know. You have to want to go find it. You have to want to pay attention to it.
Yeah. So let me ask you a different, a related question, but a little bit changed direction. Everybody is screaming about fascism. Fascism, like Trump's a fascist, Musk is a fascist, etc. What does the word fascism mean to you? What is your understanding of that word?
So what fascism means to me is when you don't have the ability to choose for yourself. When I think of the word fascism, I think of the George Orwell 1984, where it's like your life is dictated to you, and that even if you had a desire to do something different, you really can't, because there's already been a path chosen for you that you have to live or die. And basically, that's really what it is. It's ruled by fear of violence. To me, is what that is. Is living under a fascist regime is if I don't get in line, meaning I don't talk, I don't have the freedom to speak against it. I don't have the right to protest against it. I don't have a right to choose a different path for me. Then I basically I'm facing violence or potentially death.
So my understanding of fascism is that, first of all, you are part of the fascist party. Like you just self-describe as a fascist. Second part is it's an authoritarian style of governance. So basically rule by decree rather than rule by democratic process,
right.
Say. And it's a combining of the power of the state and
the prima nocta.
The prima nocta. I am invoking prima nocta.
Prima nocta. For those who are have ever seen Braveheart.
Braveheart, yeah.
The king sleeps with your wife on the day of your marriage.
Gosh, that was probably the most disturbing thing about that whole movie, in my opinion.
I mean. But I would say that's kind of fascist.
Even after the torture scene, I still think that was worse.
Right.
The other thing about a fascist state is that it's a purposeful and sanctioned combination of the corporate state and the political state to leverage business and political power over people, and then there's some degree of
so almost like a selective rights always trump individual rights to a degree, or
an
unsubscribe or a unsigned social contract that's imposed on you.
Think of it like the one industry that probably has the most power over you over any other industry is banking.
Sure. Yeah.
So what happens when the banks and the federal government are working together? You lose financial freedom.
Right.
Because you can't not be involved in banking.
I mean, not if you want to live.
Not if you want to live in civilized society.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you're able to live in a cabin off grid somewhere where no one's going to bother you, maybe. But you're talking about 1 out of 1 million people could probably live like that.
Right. So. And then there's some element, I think, of
I like central air. So therefore,
yeah, like central air, like running water. Yeah. So, and that's just my understanding. I'm not saying that's right. It's just my understanding of fascism. And it seems to me that we're definitely possibly heading in that direction.
And I do too. And I think that's why I raised the concern about Elon Musk, along with all these other people who are in control of technology and services and banking to some degree. You have companies like Google and Apple and everything who are very much basically banks. Yeah, they don't have checking accounts or anything, but they do probably process more transactions through e-commerce and on your device, and
if you just look at overall economic power, we're talking most of the world's wealth, most of the privately held world's wealth is sitting in that row of people.
Oh yeah, I mean, Apple alone is a $2+ trillion, 2.5, maybe $3 trillion. I don't know. It's trillions of dollars in that company. Google, I don't know what their market cap is. I'm sure it's on the same playing field or higher. Same with Amazon.
However, let me just add something to this. The reason why Google has all this power, and the reason why Apple has all of this power and money, and the reason why Amazon and Facebook does, is because we voluntarily participate.
Correct. No one.
So that's what keeps me from going all the way into saying this is fascism because so much of their power is our voluntary participation in it.
I agree, but also too, government has helped them, and I'm not even just talking about in the early days of grants and tax, incentives or reductions and these things. I'm talking about. Let's go back just a few years to the years 2021, and the pandemic is in full swing. The only way to transact in the real world, like going to a restaurant or something, was with a phone, scanning a QR code. Only cashless payments or digital payments were accepted, so that we don't touch each other.
Right.
And so the government, kind of I don't know if I would say imposed, but I mean they kind of remember there was like,
but you know what? There were no laws about that.
There was no laws.
That was
Just
still
like there was
voluntary.
no laws about the vaccine. A lot of people had to take it because they didn't want to lose their job.
Right. But if you're running a
military,
restaurant, like
you were just completely
what was compelled in the lockdowns was no indoor dining.
Yeah.
Was there any legal compulsion to touchless payment?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't remember. I don't remember.
Well, no,
I'm asking the question.
There were fines being imposed on businesses like gyms and stuff daily for not closing.
Right. So that part I understand. But I'm saying like the restaurant chooses. I don't think you have
to go as far as actually creating or passing any laws, because once you go ahead and put the bolts to some low hanging fruit, no one wants to mess with that. No one wants to be the precedent for it. You just kind of get in line.
Yeah, I understand that, but also at the same time, I don't have any sympathy for that, because for all the crying about like, oh, we're being oppressed, it's like you participated in your own oppression, and you were like, well, I don't want to be the first one. Then you lose the right to complain when the oppression comes. I didn't close. My classroom. I made some adjustments because I thought they were prudent for health purposes, but I never closed.
Right.
And we ended up getting into some trouble for us trying to stay open, not for the fact that we were staying open, but we drew attention to ourselves because we stayed open.
Well, it's also good marketing.
Yeah. And it is good marketing. And that's another thing. It's just like the idea of like, you want attention, be the one that stands up, now I know that people did suffer. I know that people did lose their businesses because they defied. I understand that. But if we all decided that the government doesn't get to tell us when we open and close our businesses.
But they kind of did, look at the trucking protests and what they do. They cut.
That was Canada.
That was Canada, but
that wasn't here.
But it still matters.
It does matter. It does matter.
Because what did they do? They went like you were referencing earlier. They went after the money. They went after the banking pipeline and started shutting them down there. Visa was shutting down the fundraising and all this other stuff. It's like, because there wasn't necessarily a law, but if the government says, hey, we're going to put FBI offices in your building, Twitter, we're going to fucking do it. Oh, okay. And it's like, I would say that there is a lot of pressure that we're unaware of that happens behind closed doors or
certainly
that we're not privy to.
The thing is, I think
if the mayor of your town or showed up, or a representative with the police and walked in your classroom and said, if you don't shut this down, we're going to take you to jail and we're going to shut your bank account down, what would you have done? I mean, you might have just been like, fucking do it.
I thought it through. I thought it through, and I was going to accept that outcome.
Right. But
because partly the marketing would have been off the charts.
Well, the marketing would have been off the chain for sure, and I would have probably guided you to go that way. I'm like, dude, you can't buy this kind of publicity.
Yeah.
But if it was your main source of income or only source of income, would you have been in
the thing is you have to. I understand what you're saying, and I get the difficulty of the question.
Everyone has to answer that question for themselves.
Right.
No one else can answer it or call you a pussy.
Right.
For going a certain way.
But you have to understand the flip side of that.
Yes.
Which is, if you're not willing to make the smaller sacrifices, what makes you think you're going to be willing to make the larger sacrifices? because I don't want to say small, like you giving up, like you getting arrested is not a small sacrifice, but it's a hell of a lot smaller than waking up in a society 10 years from now where you're not allowed to criticize your government.
Right. There's a big difference.
And so, but we're, I mean, like this is an evolutionary thing we're fighting with here, short-term thinking versus long-term thinking and projecting into the future and things like that. I'm not saying this is easy. I'm just saying that a lot of the complaining that we have about how much power these companies have over us,
right,
we voluntarily participated in.
Sure. And it's complacency, it's comfort, it's being comfortable. People oftentimes will prioritize comfort.
I don't think that they're prioritizing comfort. I think they're actually prioritizing efficiency.
Well, I was going to say comfort and convenience.
Convenience, which is a way of saying efficiency. Yes,
because and I'm kind of leading back to the technology side, which is why I was so concerned. I'm in the middle of this rabbit hole of research right now on location-based surveillance through apps on devices and stuff, and it led me to some other areas where how we're being manipulated without our knowing about it. There was some stuff, and we don't have to. I'm not go down this big story, but it was you know who the NSSF is, right?
The National Shooting Sports Foundation.
Yes. They were working with Cambridge Analytica, which was the big scandal during the 2016 Trump, right? But they were selling information. They were using information about gun owners and working with Cambridge Analytica to put together targeted advertising on 5 different cohorts.
The Great Satan advertising.
Of advertising. And you know what's crazy is how they got this information?
Was warranty information, right?
Warranty information sold.
Those little cards, those little warranty cards.
100%.
Which boggles my mind because
and this included all of them: Mossberg, Winchester, Glock.
So many of these gun companies have an unspoken lifetime warranty on their products.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you fill out the card. All you got to do is look on the side of the barrel where it says the maker of the gun and contact them and say, hey, your gun stopped working.
Correct.
And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, send it to us and we'll fix it. You don't need the warranty card.
Right.
So why would you fill that out? As a gun owner, why would you fill that out?
I think it's because we've been conditioned
that
when you buy any product that has warranty and you register with the date of purchase and your receipt and all that,
which is like the biggest scam in the history of
all it does is put you on list after list after list. You might go out of your way to not divulge your personal information by not giving your phone number at the grocery store and all these other things, but you fill out one friggin' warranty card. A warranty card. And then that's what actually ends up getting you.
And the only way the only thing you need to know about how this is a scam is just read the warranty card. It doesn't ask for the name of the product, your address, and your phone number. It asks for your purchasing habits, how you bought the dishwasher, where you found it, what other things, what magazines you subscribe to. Like,
it's
hello,
it's purely a marketing funnel. Is all it is.
It's brilliant, is what it is.
Absolutely is brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant. But the whole point is what I'm saying is that a lot of these things are set up in a way to dupe people. So though, I know it's like on one end, it's hard to say like, well, that's what you chose. That's the path you chose. And you did. But it's like also you're being lied to. You're 100% being lied to. Or at the very minimum misrepresented of what the actual reason is why people are doing what they're doing, what they're asking for you.
So the cynical side of me goes back to what I said before, which is your responsibility is to take care of yourself. If you think other people are going to take care of you, then you're more likely to not be the buyer beware type person. Mm-hmm. We're supposed if you go back and I don't know, the right way to say this, but Little House on the Prairie, if you ever watched or listened, read the books or watched the show or whatever, if you go back and kind of analyze this older style of commerce, where if I'm going to buy something from you, I'm automatically skeptical of what you're selling me. And if I'm selling you something, I'm automatically skeptical that you're actually going to pay me what you say you're going to pay me. So there's distrust on both sides of the equation. And that distrust is what helps protect both sides from getting ripped off. But now we're at a point where like, oh, warranty card? Oh, that must be a good thing. And you fill it out without a second thought.
Right.
Where you should be skeptical of everybody who wants something from you.
And oftentimes, too, these things are baked in at the point of purchase now because they already have all your information, number one. And so when they want to sell you, like, I mean, if you go to any store, I don't care if it's Walmart or Costco or Sam's Club or wherever, Best Buy, you buy any electronic device over $50, there is a 2 or 3 year warranty plan. It's the same thing. I mean, yes, sometimes it's worth buying a warranty on things like a vehicle or something or whatever.
You know what's crazy about that whole process is that they're actually charging you to get your information from you.
Yes, you're paying
$6 to give them your information.
That's exactly what's happening.
So it's not even like, hey, would you fill out this card for me? It's like, hey, I need $6 and everything about you.
Yeah. I don't do the warranty stuff. I haven't for a very long time. I've been very privy to this, especially working in marketing for as long as I have. And what I found, and this is probably a little bit different for me in some cases, but I've oftentimes had pretty decent online presences because I've had websites and YouTube channels and I do reviews on stuff. So like one example is I had a pair of Bose QC15s that just stopped working and they were way out of the warranty anyways. And I've been privy enough to know how to do things without actually, so I never emailed Bose. I just posted a tweet with a photo of it. And at the time on that account, I think I had 20,000, followers or something. And it was like, oh, bummer. My Bose QC15s just died on me today. Anybody have any good recommendations on alternate headphones? And I used the hashtag and I tagged Bose, and all this. And they immediately, within like 30 minutes, were messaging me saying, hey, can you follow us so we can DM you? And I was like, yeah, sure. And they were like, just give us your address. We'll send you a new pair.
You know
and
why?
They did.
You know why?
Did.
Because that's good advertising.
It is good advertising. And this just happened again in the last couple months. I have a very expensive off-road camper designed for off-roading. And it came with a Truma fridge. Well, that Truma fridge stopped working. It was freezing all the food. So the thermistor, I think it's called, went out. And I've had this problem on a different fridge that I was able to fix myself with a $20 part from Amazon. And I replaced it and it's working on my Dometic. This is on a Truma fridge. So I'm like, well, shit. All right. It's basically like 6 months out of like what the warranty would have been. But I'm like, I'm the type of guy that's like, whatever. So I email them from my email account that's tied to one of my online social media accounts, which is kind of decent sized in the space. And I do marketing and I'm involved in this overland community. So I sent them an email, give them the whole breakdown. And I said, I noticed on your website, I can't buy parts for this thing. I could replace it myself. Can you tell me where to buy the part at least? They respond back, oh, we don't sell the parts. I'm like, so I send it back saying, so I just have a $1,800 block of e-waste. What do you want me to do with it? I've talked to our upper management. We've been authorized to send you a brand new fridge. We just need your address. Really? This pisses me off though in two ways. One is that like, did they do that because of they like checked the links in my social, like my Instagram and YouTube and all that stuff, or would they just do this for anybody? I don't know. Second is, why are you making stuff when it fails? And I know what the problem is. It can't be fixed. The only option is to replace the unit. And it's a big unit. It's 69 liters.
Well, maybe that's
By the way, it did show up last week, and I have my new fridge.
So good job, Truma.
Yeah.
But we're satisfied with subpar products as long as we get what we think we're paying for. But $1,800 is a lot for a fridge
Well, yeah, and it's designed to be in a 12 volt or
Right.
or
It
110.
shouldn't.
It's
It shouldn't
designed
be
to-
dying after a
it shouldn't
couple
be
years.
dying after a couple years. Meanwhile, the Dometic, which is like 5 years old, I replaced it with a $20 part.
Mhm.
Right back online, baby. And that thing's. I use these things not only when I'm off roading, but I use them at home. Is like
Yeah.
beer fridges. And shit.
So-
always on.
Like, again, the cynical side of me, when I say the cynical side, it's like part of me believes this, but also there's tension here and thinking like, well, maybe this isn't totally true, or maybe this is a rule with exceptions. But the cynical side of me says we are so used to just letting people take advantage of us because of inattentive purchasing.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Shout out to Zero Foxtrot though. They did replace two pairs of my running shorts because they tore.
nice.
Yeah.
But that's a smaller company, right? You didn't email Reebok and said, like
Yeah, sure. Reebok would tell me to go pound.
that.
sand,
But that's
sure.
like a more you made a decision to buy from let's call it local for
it's a
lack
U.S. brand. We know the clothes are made somewhere else,
Right,
in,
but
Bangladesh or whatever.
if we're just talking like size of company, size of market, let's call it local just to say small, not Reebok, not Nike.
Okay, yeah.
So you choose to make a purchase with one of these local companies, and part of that is more discerning, more effort on your part, and also a higher expectation of the quality of the product. Because you can buy Reebok at Walmart.
Yeah.
And it was made by some kid in Vietnam, and you email Walmart or you email Reebok and say, hey, this doesn't do what it was promised, and they're not even
Right.
going to see the email, let alone answer you.
Right.
So you took the extra effort to purchase with a little bit more discretion, and you are rewarded with good customer service.
True.
So that's kind of the thing, is like we have to take more ownership.
I'm just saying that's exactly it.
Mhm.
Is be aggressive.
Yeah.
Be aggressive. And
Now I got
and-
aggressive with Instacart this week.
Oh, Instacart.
Instacart,
Interesting.
yeah, the driver for Instacart dropped off the groceries at the wrong house.
Oh, that's a big mess up.
And we contact Instacart and they're like, we're sorry about that. I'm like, sorry, and what? Like, what are you going to do about it? And they're like, well, we'll reprocess your order. Okay, cool. When is it going to be here? Well, nobody's delivering anymore, so it'll be there in the morning. Like, I paid for groceries tonight. I want my groceries tonight. Well, there's nobody driving anymore. Okay, give it to me tomorrow. It's 9 a.m. tomorrow, which was the deadline. No groceries. Start talking to them again on chat. There's nothing we can do. Like, what do you mean there's nothing you can do? There's nothing we can do.
2 words that you tell them. Okay, that's fine. I'll just charge back.
See, that's the thing, is a more sophisticated consumer would have purchased thinking ahead about chargebacks. But since we were not sophisticated consumers and we paid for this with the debit card.
Okay. Everyone listening to this episode right now, put your debit card in a thing of water and put it in your freezer and never use it.
So that requires discipline on your part, though.
Well, yes, it does.
Because if you use a credit card,
Well, you
you always have the option of not paying the balance.
No, you don't. You pay it off every
Nope.
2 weeks, regardless of the balance.
But that's discipline. The card allows you to pay the minimum payment.
I don't give a shit. I don't care. I don't care
But-
that it's a $50,000 limit. I'm never going to have
Right.
more than $1,500 on that card.
But that's what I'm saying. That requires a discretionary, disciplined consumer to do that.
But what does that reward you with? Not being in this situation.
Correct.
Without $200 on Instagram or whatever.
Correct. Right. So
is cash out of your bank
who's the
account.
responsibility for who controls your money? It's your responsibility.
Right.
The moment you start depending on customer service and, the better beer, like that's my favorite.
Yeah,
I'm reporting you to the
report
best.
this to Better Business Bureau. That hasn't been
That doesn't
relevant
do
since
anything.
'89.
Right. And so, but we have this idea that somebody else is going to take care of
Right.
us
Someone
if
else
we,
is going to fight for me on this one.
right.
No, they're not.
And so the moment things didn't go right, I thought to myself, chargeback. And then I was like, no, we didn't do it right. It was our fault for not doing it right. And now I don't have the option for a chargeback.
Yeah.
And
So I tell you
so,
what, anytime I've called up Amex or gone online and said, "Oh no, this was this was I dispute this. It's a chargeback. You know what Amex does? Cool. And they send the chargeback right to the company. And now the company has to come up with a reason why it should be overturned.
Right. Right. And that's the point I was making with the guy that I was on the chat with is like, you have $128 of my money and I don't have any groceries. And his answer was like, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Right. And now I'm left with my thumb up my ass. Like there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
You know, and he says, we can give you a refund. You'll have your money back in 5 to 10 days, which is like the biggest insult.
It is the biggest insult because it's also just kind of going like, well, really, I just wanted to use your service to actually get the products that I just want. And you're telling me I'm just up a creek right now.
Right.
Like, nothing's okay.
Right.
Great. And
so this goes back to my bigger point is we all volunteered for this one way or another. We all volunteered for this. And maybe we weren't taught right. Maybe we weren't instructed by our parents. But you have to understand, if you get screwed once, okay, you can accept that. If you get screwed twice in the same way, you are doing something wrong. Not the company is doing something wrong. Not the cops are doing something wrong. Not the government is doing something wrong. You are doing something wrong. You did not learn from your mistake. You did not take responsibility for your fuck up.
Right.
Now, you can't take responsibility for all the fuck ups, but you can take more responsibility than you are right now.
Definitely everyone's waking up and they're only thinking about how they can enrich their own life, their business, so on and so forth. They're not thinking about necessarily how can I make my customers' lives better. That's a side effect of their business profitability. But only you are waking up in the morning and going like, how can I enrich my life today? Right?
So you hear like the only things you can count on are death and taxes. We need to add one to that. You can count on death, taxes, and selfishness.
Selfishness.
Doesn't mean that you need to be selfish.
No.
But you need to assume that everybody you're dealing with.
It means that you need to be vigilant.
Right. You have to be vigilant against selfishness.
Right.
Yeah.
And anticipate that that's what most people are motivated or driven by is their own selfishness. And so you have to be ready for it. And I think for me, that's kind of why I was saying earlier, like assume all your data is going to be breached. So you should always be using a password manager. You should always be using unique email aliases. You should always never be giving your real information to fucking anybody.
Right.
Unless it's a judge, or maybe a cop, maybe, depends on the situation. But, generally speaking, no one is entitled to know who you are and get your information. Every time you go to the grocery store or Best Buy or any of these other places, you obviously know the places I probably go in my life. They're like, and your phone number? Fuck you. That's my phone number.
Yeah. 1-800 fuck you.
I have money. You have products. I just want to exchange this for that. And we're both going to move on with our life.
Yeah.
You don't need my phone number or my email address or any of that stuff. But we've been conditioned and programmed to be like, this is a complete stranger. A woman at a gym would not give her phone number to some random dude in the gym.
Right.
She'll go to the grocery store after the gym and give a random person her phone number to save 8% or whatever the thing is. And you can give them fake info, by the way, people. You can still get the discounts and not give your information. I'm just saying, with the condition where it's like if it's a business asking, you just give it to them.
Right.
What? Why?
So to tie this all back to the last 16 days of the Trump administration, we as a society have gotten very conditioned to let our politicians have our fight for us rather than us having our fights on our own. And I understand you can't have every fight. Like, it's exhausting. But we can do more than we're doing right now.
Yeah. You have to, I think that most people don't wake up to that until there's a specific issue that triggers them.
Right. Which kind of gets me to this idea of, like, we don't really have it that bad. As bad as you think it is right now.
Yeah. I think the same way.
Like, you have no idea how bad it could be. You have no idea how bad it could be. If you want some idea of how bad it could be, go on YouTube and look up Sarajevo sniper and watch people try to go to work dodging snipers in a first world city.
That's a rough day. That's a rough
And
morning.
snipers are like part of the problem because there's also artillery and mortars. and people are just trying to live
Dude, if that
their
was going
life.
on here, people would be like, "Oh, I'm not going to work."
We had the Olympics in Sarajevo, and then it turned around into a war zone within a few years. And you see people in these videos in their professional clothes. They're in their suits, they're in their dresses, the kids are in their school clothes, and they are dodging snipers in the street. And you're like, well, you're like, oh, RFK Jr. is going to take away my right to stick a needle in my ass. Like, I have no sympathy at all. None at all. None at all.
I'm not a fan of all of RFK's politics, but I'm a fan of RFK.
Dude, the guy is ripped.
I hope I am on his level at his age.
Dude, have you seen him with his shirt off?
Yes. Yeah. And like, I'm jealous, dude.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. Yeah, and I know we're both
it's not just that he's like ripped too. He's also tan.
No.
Like the guy lives in Massachusetts or something, and he's like totally tan.
Do you know how hard it is to have abs? Visible abs.
How old is he? He's in his 70s, isn't he?
I think so. Let me see. How old is RFK Jr.? He is 71 years old.
Yeah. The dude looks like that guy from that like Facebook ad.
He looks like Ryan Gosling in Stupid Crazy Love, where she's accusing him of being photoshopped in the movie because he's just absolutely chiseled. And this guy is 71 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, bro, like if there was a model to have for health, that is some version of him is what it should be.
Yeah. I'm at least gonna listen to him. I'm not gonna do everything he says, but
like
clearly he's doing something right.
Yeah. The proof is in the pudding, so to speak, right?
Oh, pudding is right.
Pudding is right. So I want to, going back to the immigration thing, there's this clip I want to play. The audio isn't super great, but there is a fan, or I don't know if they're a fan, but there is an attendee at a Katt Williams stand-up who is heckling Katt Williams.
Oh, bad idea.
About the immigration issue that he...
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Stop saying, you think I'm just in Mexico and I'm defending America. Because are you Mexican? Do you know where Mexico is? No, this ain't Mexico. It used to be Mexico, motherfucker. Now it's Phoenix, goddammit.
Now it's Phoenix. Listen to this shit. He starts chanting USA from the stage.
You don't leave here to go to Mexico, motherfucker. But if you go to your next speech, you can come home. Yo, nigga, do you know where you at, nigga? USA!
He just keeps going hard.
Motherfuckers think they can live in this country and then still be allegiance to another fucking country. If you love another country more than you love America, motherfucker, then get to stepping in that bitch.
It says get to stepping. You know, like I mean, it just.
Mexico, bitch, get the fuck over there.
Mind you, he's in Phoenix, and it has a very big Mexican population.
Oh, yeah.
and fan base who's at this show.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
And as for my Mexican American homies, you know what my family did for this country, bitch.
So I'll play the whole clip, but he has like a bunch of Mexican American fans who are on the other side of the stage because I don't know if it's like a big round stage.
Yeah,
so
doing it in the round. Yeah,
and they're cheering for him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to see this happening right now because in other countries, I mean, it's normal to see protests in general, like during Ukraine, Russia, people pick a side and they carry the flag and they protest or whatever. But with this situation, you have a lot of the Mexican protesters who are kind of pro-Mexican protesting against illegal immigration, or the way they see it, in the very country that they're escaping to. And I think we're starting to see some breaking points where people are just like basically fed up with whatever the issue is. And in this particular case, it's the immigration issue. And I'm sure there are probably cases that are gross, egregious situations that ICE might be doing, or other things might be doing.
All systems create waste.
They all create waste, for sure. And I don't know what it's like, because I can't put myself in the shoes. If I were, and I know it's different because people will say, "Well, you're privileged being born in a first world country with all these different resources and stuff." It's like, yeah, I probably am. But if I were to go to live in another country and protest against that country with my own flag, I don't think it would go over very well.
No, it would not. It would not. Absolutely,
if I was
would
in
not.
Germany, if I was in any European nation state, if I was, and I'm holding an American flag. Not even doing shit. Probably just holding the American flag. I'd probably get targeted.
Well, certainly holding the American flag, complaining about German policies as a immigrant in that country.
It would be weird, right?
It wouldn't be weird. You'd get your ass kicked.
Well, no. I'm saying it would be weird for them to see that.
Yeah.
So I throw one of my Zens out. Why are we? Why? So
I almost just asked you for one.
Oh, by the way, I know we're going to hang out this weekend. I was like looking for a pair of my sunglasses in the closet, and I found a pair of those Camel Crushes. And I was like, oh, these will come in handy this weekend, maybe. But anyway, yeah, it's just, I don't know. I'm not trying to take a stance. I'm just saying, like, this is interesting to see comedians and people.
Okay, so there's things that we accept as like not. We don't accept them as good, but we accept them as normal.
Yeah.
If you go into a Raiders stadium with the opposing jersey and all you do the entire time is scream about how Raiders suck and your team is awesome,
yeah,
you're going to get your ass kicked.
You're going to get your ass kicked, for sure.
And nobody would say, like, well, that's legal, but everybody would probably say, that was a really bad idea.
That's a dumb idea. You probably shouldn't have done that.
And that's just sports.
Right.
And you're going to come into a country and wave around your flag about how, like, you have a right as a citizen of a different country to be here when you didn't go through whatever their process was. And it's not like I agree with all the process, but I'm just trying to understand the logic here of waving your flag and saying that this country is unjust when you're here and not there.
And in the last few years, if you wave an American flag, there's almost this undertone that you're racist or a Nazi or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a second, as a kid, which I don't agree with, that you should be forced to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't think you should be forced or guided to pledge anything of any allegiance to anything. But my point is that as a kid, before class started, you would, pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, as a class before the day started. And I know it sounds like, when I think about it, I'm like, oh, that's kind of fucked up. But the flag itself was never a symbol of anything other than the country's unity, and regardless of our race, religion, creed, so on and so forth, we're all Americans. We can all we all got each other's back, so to speak, in this like figurative bullshit of whatever. And so now,
if we get nuked by the commies, we're gonna nuke them together back.
Pretty much. So, yeah,
because we were in elementary school right at the end of the USSR.
We were at the end of it. But there's a lot of like respect in general, right? You go to a baseball game. We used to go as kids. There was the national anthem, the flag, this and that. And I'm not into the symbolism of things, by the way. I'm not trying to promote that. I'm just saying, when did it shift to now a symbol of anything other than just the same I don't know, the same thing.
Well,
And-
like the idea of symbolism and using some kind of a flag is not new. It's not colonial. It's not
No.
white supremacy. This
No.
is what humans have done since they figured
Well-
out how to like draw on fabric.
draw on fabric. Not only that, but it's also used as a way to communicate. You know, a lot of ships at sea have the flag from the port of origin of where
Yeah.
that ship is from. There's a lot of things that this is used for. Like if you have a sailboat and you sail around the world, you know, you might change your flag. Depending, I'm just saying, there's it's used as a communication tool, as a
Right.
you know, a way
So,
to
I have
identify.
an American flag hanging on my front porch. It's
I
not
do too, and probably for the same reason as you do.
I don't have any love for our government.
No.
I don't have any love for the flag as a representation of the United States as a government. I have it as a representation of the ideal.
Yeah.
And the ideal is leave me alone and let me do what I want to do. And I actually like kind of struggled with this idea of actually putting it up for a long time. And then I started remembering and rereading some of my old Hunter S. Thompson. And I'm like, no, I appreciate the idea behind this flag. I have no allegiance to any government or organization. It's an
I feel the
allegiance
same
to an
way.
ideal.
I actually have my flag up for a completely different reason. Which is because I like statistics. I like analytics.
Uh-huh.
Is that most robbers skip houses that have flags on?
Really?
Yes.
Ah, see, I did not know that. How did
Yes.
you deduce this?
So this actually came out of a few different articles that I had found, and I can pull them back up. It wasn't something I planned to talk about, so I'm not prepared tonight. But I've looked into this before, and people who have been convicted of breaking and entering. And,
I love the jailhouse interviews.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have said, I typically would skip a house if it had an American flag. Typically because if they are at home, they're more likely armed.
More likely to fucking shoot you.
I'm more likely to be run into some sort of situation from someone who looks to be like they're, proud of what they have and who they are. They're usually willing to defend themselves versus a house that doesn't have a flag or has some sort of live, laugh, love, pray shit.
Has that little sign out that's up front of the house that says, "In this house, we believe that science is real."
Right.
Oh, a bunch of free shit.
and it's like, and the area I live in. Most of the people that live out where I live also have American flags and Trump flags. I wouldn't try to rob any of those houses personally,
Especially post-COVID, where the homeowner is more likely to be working from home.
Homeowners are more likely to be working from home, and particularly in the area I live, there is a lot of retirement people that are retired. So there are people home all the time, which actually makes me feel great. Like my neighbors are retired; they're home all the time. So when we go out of town, we let them know, and they're like, "Oh, cool." So we'll keep an eye. I mean, we have like cameras and stuff like that, of course, too. But like, I'm just saying, I feel pretty good. Like I feel. I don't know if that's a good rationale to want to put an American flag up, because it makes it what I'm communicating to my neighbors who have my back is like, yo, I'm on your team, even if I'm like, I don't really give a shit. Right? Who cares? Who gives a fuck? I don't care. But at the same time, if it helps statistically, someone rolling through casing out houses in my neighborhood and they go, oh, probably not that one, that one. But the guy behind me on the other side of the road who has other colorful flags up on their house, I don't know, maybe that's a good target.
I'd take that chance.
You take that.
It's like when I talk to people about open carry, and I say
open carry, same thing. Why?
It's like, if I see you open carrying, the first thing that goes through my mind is, could I get that from you if I wanted it?
All the time, I think the same thing. First of all, if you open carry, I am judging you. Plain and simple. I judge a lot of people for a lot of reasons, like the people who are using the carts at Walmart or grocery stores that only use it because you're overweight. I'm judging you. I can't help it.
If you're wearing your pajamas to the post office
or the airport,
I'm judging you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just throw 2 Zins. Well, fuck it. Let's go all the way. I'm judging you, and that's okay.
Mhm.
People probably judge me too, and I can accept that. It is what it is. We all judge each other for different things. We're just humans. But you know, I'm just all to say is that it's intrinsic in us. So even if you're a bad person, meaning someone that's willing to break in someone's home or whatever, guess what? They're subconsciously, even if they're not consciously aware, judging the house that they're considering breaking into
Mm-hmm.
by what they can see. What kind of vehicles do you have? How well do you keep your yard? What's visible? Does it look junky or not? The junkier, the worse, because you probably have a dog and a 12 gauge right by the front door. You know what I'm saying? If it's really clean and pristine, you're maybe more worried about the way that you look, and therefore you might be a little more like, I don't know. And if you have a flag out, that flag communicates a lot to the world just with one piece of fabric.
Mm-hmm.
When you saw those flags that you're talking about in this house, we blah, 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 whatever, you're like, automatically, the personality that's behind the other side of that door.
Right.
Right?
Pussy.
I mean, I would love at some point, pussy. You know who I would love to interview about this topic? If we could ever work it out? Mormons.
Yeah.
Because I bet you Mormons have got it locked on how they judge houses as they walk, or Jehovah Witness, maybe the same thing. I think Jehovah Witnesses are a little more calculated.
I think they're no. I think the Mormons are probably better because my interaction with the Jehovah's Witness is like, how did you not know that this is what was going to happen?
Right.
Yeah.
By the way, didn't you have some Mormons help you move some furniture?
They helped me unload my car after a camping trip. Yeah, I was unloading the car and they came up and they're like, hey, would you like any help? I'm like, absolutely. And they helped me carry all the shit out of my car. And we got to the door and they're like, so we'd like to talk to you. I'm like, nah, I'm good. And then I just closed the door.
Totally good. Totally good. So,
I forgot about that.
I forget who I was having a conversation with recently. And somehow that story came up, and I misremembered it. I think I said, yeah, my brother actually had some Mormons help him move some furniture in his house, but it was something like that.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was funny.
Yeah, well, so I saw him walking up to me, and I was like, oh, my God, not now. But then they said, hey, could we help you? And I was like, oh,
well,
yeah.
That changes everything. I'd love some help. How are you guys with changing out hot water heaters?
Yeah, exactly.
Because my brother and my dad aren't so great.
Hey, I was gonna swap the tranny on this Honda. You want to help me with that? All right, so I have a piece of news that I think is hilarious.
Oh, bring it.
Did you hear that the NFL is removing the end racism, I guess, like end zone tag for the Super Bowl?
No, I didn't.
So you know how
even
like
a
on the
thing.
football
Is that like
field,
a BLM association or something else? Or
it's a DEI thing. I don't know.
Oh.
BLM has kind of like lost their
But
way.
Isn't something like end racism something that we should all just? It shouldn't be something we have to always. Yeah, I don't know, and I know a lot of people will be like, "Well, how would you know? You're a white guy."
Let me just ask the question: how would you do it? How would you end racism?
Just not be racist. How about that?
Yeah, we're gonna end millions of years of evolution with like a banner around the NFL football field.
We should start with maybe interviewing some Japanese and Chinese and ask them about how maybe they could help us out by ending racism.
Yeah. Now, if we were going to say something like end discrimination,
I love how only America's racist.
Yeah.
If we're
going to say,
you ever have friends who are German? I do.
Yeah. What was it like? It was like a few years ago that the Japanese were finally to the point where they were willing to apologize to the Chinese. But that didn't go well.
No, yeah, it's not
yeah.
Well.
So I'm not saying that we should be racist, by the way. I'm just saying
I'm not advocating for racism. I'm just saying this
like
is a
good
global...
luck. Yeah, good luck trying to get people to stop doing something that they've been doing for millions of years.
Bro, if you were a Roman
or let me be more
day,
accurate, hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah, could you imagine being a Roman back in the day? Like how gangster it would have been to be a Roman because you were basically top of the food chain. You had global protection in a way.
It's what got Paul out of prison.
It's what got Paul out of prison.
He's like, by the way, did you guys know I was Roman? Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Oh, my bad. Total oversight on our side.
Here, let's unlock the jail cell and just let you out.
BT Dubs. Here's your. Oh, you know what? We got you a brand new pair of shoes. Here's a loaf of bread. Oh, my bad.
So,
I would have loved to have been a Roman,
dude, it'd be like
gangster.
it'd be like being American,
Right. I love that movie, and I know I keep tangenting off, but it's like that the scene in where they're trafficking guns based on the true story. The War
Dogs.
War Dogs. He was like, they're in the airport in Jordan. He's like, oh no, we go ahead. We got to go first. We're American.
Exactly. So the NFL decides, for whatever reason, maybe it's Trump, I don't know, whatever. They're going to remove the end racism from the field, and they're going to replace it with what?
Bud Light.
That would make sense, wouldn't it?
Bud Light has done a complete about-face 180 on their marketing.
Any brand would make sense.
Sure.
GoDaddy,
GoDaddy, yeah.
Bud Light, Budweiser, Google, any brand would make sense. But no, they have to stick with the message. So the new message is choose love.
Oh, choose love.
During the ultimate football game.
It's the Super Bowl.
You got grown men
in tights
who are reenacting battle
Yeah.
with each other.
Yeah.
You got people who are willing to, if they can get away with it,
let's talk about the cost to attend such a Coliseum event.
Yes.
Do you know what the tickets
Of
are
course.
going for?
Like $4,000 for the cheap seats?
It's 6 to 8 now.
Yeah.
Mainly because of the whole Taylor Swift thing and all that other shit.
So
That's
so
why they
you
love
got
Swift.
people
She
who
keeps bringing money to the-
are basically miming battle
right
on the field. And the message is choose love. Like I don't understand that. Should it be choose
money.
violence or choose money or choose choose winning or like
Yeah, choose winning.
I don't get the choose love thing. I just don't understand it.
I think it's just one of those stupid.
It's a performative.
Yeah, it's a performative.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense.
Oh,
Like
man.
maybe in the gymnastics competition.
By the way, are you coming to the ranch on Sunday? Are we?
I
watching the
believe
Super
yes.
Bowl together
Yeah,
so
yeah,
we get to make
yeah.
fun of it together.
Yeah.
That's dumb. So I have a follow up.
Go for it.
I've been keeping an eye on Jaguar.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that.
So 2 episodes. Was it 2 episodes back?
2 or 3, yeah. 2.
We were talking about the whole reveal and this and that and the other. Well,
I have to add an asterisk to that.
Yeah.
I made a mistake. When they posted the artist rendering of the back of the car,
Right.
and I was saying like that's ridiculous, no car looks like that. I didn't realize that they actually had a car that looked like that.
Yeah, it's called the 00 or the
Yeah.
00 model. Yeah.
Yeah. So I gotta take the mea culpa on
All right,
that.
he retracts the statement.
Okay.
We want to
I thought that was a
acknowledge
made up
we made a
thing.
mistake.
It's not a
No,
made up thing. It's a real
not a made
car.
up thing. So, I've been keeping tabs on them. And Tata, they're owned by Tata Motors, which is a British subsidiary. Jaguars is a British subsidiary of Tata Motors. They're in the process of securing an offshore loan of $500 million, reported by Bloomberg. In a company statement, the funds are intended to partially refinance an existing $800 million loan that's due to mature in January. So this was just this past month. To the company's statement issued in a response to a query. Well, I've also been keeping track of their stock. In the last 6 months, they have lost 30% value.
Ooh.
So, I mean, and this is just in the last 6 months. I was just looking at that. If you go back,
Now
even
let's be
further,
totally transparent and fair here. When did that marketing campaign start?
I want to say 4 months ago, but there was another big fall off. Right after that, there was an uptick and then a downslope just in the last month. I'm talking really bad. Worse than NVIDIA. NVIDIA's stock got hit hard because of this whole DeepSeek AI.
Oh, we need to talk about DeepSeek.
We will. I have a lot of information, but I just wanted to. This was just a quick follow up.
Mhm.
And there's a link to the YouTube video of where they actually the CEO is talking about, like copy nothing, blah blah blah, and he was like, if you don't like our brand, if you don't like our design, that's cool. It's not for you, and whatever. They can do whatever they want. I think it's fine. But what was interesting was they on their own official channel on YouTube, which is the video they have embedded on the US website. So I was like, let me go check out the YouTube video because all the juice is in the comments. So I took a screenshot of some of the comments. I was going to read a couple for you. The very top comment, of course, it's like the smallest font possible. Here we go. Says, was the 00 the name inspired by the amount of cars you were hoping to sell? Second comment is, please copy something. Third comment. These are comments by voting, right? The most votes on them. The new Barbie Cybertruck ? One for Barbie and one for Ken because one's pink and one's blue. And then this other one, which is looks like a car to arrive at a Diddy party.
That should be the top one.
That's what I thought. I was like, dude, that should be the top comment. That is pure gold. We don't have to spend a lot of time. It's just kind of something I've been still tracking, and it's something I'm going to continue to track.
So, do you ever go to YouTube comments and just look at the comments and think, I wish that I had said something that funny?
Oh man, I wish I had some of the savagery trollism that some of these people have. It's amazing. Yes, all the time.
So I actually have a comment that did quite well on one video.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll be able to find it, but it was on a Whistling Diesel
Oh, I love Whistling
video, and it was like a squat truck.
I did go watch that video you were talking about where they hunt down the guy that had the girl's truck and all that stuff. That was pretty good.
Yeah. So they go to like some Whistling Diesel goes undercover at a truck show. That's the name.
Okay.
And my comment has 2,100 likes.
What was your comment?
So it's, you know how he feels about squat trucks.
Yeah.
So the comment was, as a special ed teacher, nothing makes me more proud than to see so many of my students succeed like this. So I struck gold once.
That's awesome, man. It's awesome when you have a comment. Like every once in a while, I'll have a comment on an Instagram reel that gets like thousands of likes on it.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Have you ever heard of Pete Holmes?
Pete Holmes. Yes.
Dude, listen. So this was a funny bit that I just clipped because this was his bit on like if he had an interaction with aliens and explaining sleep to an alien.
Explain sleep to an alien that doesn't sleep. I couldn't do it. I could explain food. I could be like, I need energy, so I eat an apple so I can use the energy that's in the apple. I'd be like, okay. Anything else? Yeah. At night? Regardless of how much energy I've consumed, I just have to shut it down. I shut it down for like 8, 9, sometimes 12 hours. Sounds boring. I'm like, no, my brain plays movies that I'm in. Sometimes they're scary.
I just thought it was funny, man, because I was on this like comic, thing with like
Yeah.
Katt Williams, and then I came across that bit.
Yeah, when I heard his voice, I realized I was like, yeah, I do know who that is, and he's funny. I like him.
He is funny, and he reminds me of John Ritter.
Yeah, he kind of looks like John Ritter.
He kind of looks like him. He kind of sounds like him.
He sounds to me also like Chad Daniels, which is another
Chad
one.
Daniels.
Yeah, I like that guy. So let's talk about DeepSeek for a minute.
Okay.
So DeepSeek is essentially supposed to be like a super powerful AI LLM model that's cheap.
It is a super powerful LLM. that was created by a company that is under management of a hedge fund in China that was allegedly built for as little as $5.6 million.
Do you think that number is accurate?
I think it's accurate within context. When I say context, in the context of labor laws in China, but where they might be deriving the cost to build the algorithm might be more in a hard cost, because the expensive, more sophisticated GPUs that are manufactured by NVIDIA are embargoed in China. You cannot buy them. So they built this algorithm using older chips that they had access to, and older NVIDIA cards.
Does that mean that they essentially are, like, for lack of a better word, are writing off the hardware cost?
Potentially,
because they're not acknowledging that that's part of the equation.
Yeah, and so for what they paid for their infrastructure to build it, and probably their labor costs, which, okay, in retrospect, if you were to build it, say, in the U.S. using the same technology but paying U.S. labor rates, maybe it would have been $50 million. Who gives a shit?
Still cheap,
pennies
right?
On the dollar when you have companies like OpenAI and Claude and all this doing them for asking for hundreds of billions of dollars for their infrastructure. And on 7 different benchmarks, DeepSeek outperformed in reasoning models against Claude, against Llama, against OpenAI's 4.0 and their R1 reasoning models. It outperformed all of them. But here's the kicker. They released it as open source. So there are different models of parameters, the largest being the 671 billion parameter LLM, which if you have access to a data center, you could download it and use it and build your own apps on top of it. Amazing. So
okay,
they
yeah,
disrupted
the
space, meaning like even you and I, like I've been running the 70 billion model parameter locally on my machines. But here's the thing, you can use their big model on their own website, which I'm sure you've heard many times. Like people are like, well, you know, you're giving all your information in China, which that's all true. Probably shouldn't do that, or at least feed it any information you're not willing to have China associated to your IP address and your browser fingerprint and all that shit. But you can download it. And when you run it locally, there is no communication to anywhere, server anywhere. And this has been verified. I've even gone down this rabbit hole myself, watched other security analysts running Wireshark and monitoring network traffic. No calls are being made. And on top of that, the model's open source, so you have access to the entire model, on top of them writing a white paper on how they even developed the model. So this is like a huge shift, giving power to whoever wants it to be able to use these models and implement it into their own life, their business, build apps on top of it, whatever you want to do, without having to. OpenAI is not open source, by the way. It's all proprietary. It's OpenAI, Microsoft, whatever, controlled. So this is a huge. And last week, I mean, we saw a 18% dip in NVIDIA stock, a loss of $589 billion in valuation because of DeepSeek. Now,
did you say 589 billion?
Billion. It was the largest. It was the largest loss in value in a company in a single day in U.S. history.
Wow.
This is a big deal. This is
Wow.
not like a little thing. Now, it's not going to cripple NVIDIA necessarily, but it will have impact into businesses reevaluating their strategy for how to develop AI moving forward, because they're like, well, wait a second. Why do we need to spend billions or tens of billions or hundreds of billions of dollars on data center infrastructure when these guys built it on old hardware? This is the whole Iron Man, Tony Stark built this in a cave with spare parts.
Because it's China.
Yeah.
And because it's a fantastical claim, we have to ask the question, is this real? Meaning, how do we know that they're not just leveraging other LLMs or
So
doing
that's-
some other kind of?
That's okay. So to be fair, they probably did. They use what's called distilled research or distilled analysis, which basically means you can somewhat, to a degree, reverse engineer other LLMs by looking at the responses to questions and using that for your own AI modeling.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens, and all LLMs do that, by the way. But let's not forget that the LLMs like Claude and OpenAI, ChatGPT and stuff were doing the very same thing to copyrighted content
Mm-hmm.
for the last 5 years, scraping YouTube and Wikipedia and everything else. So, I mean, if one's scraping from another and that one's scraped from, I mean, it's, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of in the ballpark of going like, well, you got to get your information from somewhere. And not to mention, they probably also utilized some of Llama's, which is the Meta's open sourced version of their large language model. They open sourced it. They probably did utilize, they probably leveraged everything they had access to, sure, which is probably why they were also able to build it for so cheaply. But now here comes the conundrum, right? All of these models, right, are scraping from the web and scraping from public sources where they can get access to, and then other LLMs are scraping from each other. At some point, the margins start to get real small as far as like how much better is one versus the other. Well, they might be slightly better, slightly not better, but good enough, right? And if the open source version is good enough, that's what people will use, which means it takes less demand away from the proprietary corporate developed models, and makes investors less likely to be a part with their dollars so much to make ChatGPT 5.0, because they're like, well, wait a second, hold on a second. Our one's out and it's already better than 4.0 model. How much more money do we want to spend for ChatGPT to become slightly better than DeepSeek? Not like, do you want to, if you're an investor or a hedge fund manager, are you going to be willing to still part with that $10 billion
Mm-hmm.
to OpenAI? You might be like, yeah, maybe we
So
should.
to distill this down, basically, this is just a kind of like a reverse, not reverse, but what is it? Is it Moore's law? Which I know it doesn't exactly apply,
Right,
but
the diminishing value,
right,
diminishing return.
the technology gets better and it gets cheaper,
Right,
exponentially.
correct.
And so this is like that. This is DeepSeek is basically that. And
DeepSeek is exactly that. And for those that don't know, right, especially in the US, because the most popular devices are like Apple devices, but in the rest of the world, it's Android.
Mhm.
And when I say Android, I'm not talking about just your phone. I'm talking about fucking everything, from your IoT device that you hook up to your TV, to your microwave, to the fridge you buy that looks at your food and tells you what to, all that shit runs typically some open source model, Linux or Android variant of some kind, to make all that stuff happen. All these cameras you get, and all this stuff, they're all running open source because they have to in order to be cheap.
Mhm.
They can't spend all this money on licensing like little, proprietary operating systems. And so, Android is the global leader as far as like mobile operating system, because Android is open source. AOSP, the Android Open Source Project, is open source by Google, which is okay from Google's standpoint, which is a smart move, because basically that builds the foundation for anyone to use anything commercially to run Google services on top of Android.
Mhm.
Right? It doesn't mean you always have to, but a lot will, right? We use like Graphene and OS, and there's like Lineage and all these other variants and stuff, which is great, but those are all built from AOSP. So I'm thinking like, okay, this is kind of interesting because this might pave the way for, let's say, a Linux distribution that has AI built into it, which, let's be real, there's a lot of cool features about AI, as long as you're not sacrificing your personal data for it, right?
Mhm.
But if you could download a new Ubuntu distribution or Arch Linux or whatever you want to do, and it has You pick what variation of AI model you want to run. So maybe you have a big hard drive, big graphics card. So you say, oh, I'll do the 70 billion parameter. That sounds good. And it can index your system and it can do all sorts of cool shit. So now you can actually just put in prompts all running locally, no internet connection needed, and say, hey, can you pull up all my mortgage records for the last 5 years, and also to quantify how much I've spent, and also tell me how much has been interest and how much has been principal and how much has been property tax and so on and so forth. Here you go. That's powerful. That's really cool stuff to be able to pull that information out of your system and it never leave your machine. It all stays local, right? You might ask it to help you. Maybe you're not so great with math, and I know you're doing a lot of work in your backyard, and you could go into your computer and say, hey, application, tell me how much concrete I need. I want to put a concrete slab in, and it's going to be 6 inches deep. It's going to be 12 feet wide and 11 feet long, or whatever. How much volume, how much concrete do I need to buy? This is how much you need, and you could say, cool, how many bags of concrete is that? The Quikrete comes in a 30-pound bag, blah, 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 whatever. I'm just saying, there's so many practical things. That
would you think that it is fair to characterize AI, as we commonly understand it, as an extremely sophisticated calculator?
So, in some degree, yes, but it actually has quite a bit of reasoning built into it as well.
Well, yeah, but if you don't understand the higher order math that's going on, but you know how to input it,
sure, yes,
right?
Very much so.
So it's reasoning, but it's reasoning within its capabilities without any real creativity.
Yeah, that's true.
So it has, unlike a calculator. Well, kind of like a calculator, but unlike a calculator, it has the capacity to be wrong.
It has the capacity to be wrong, for sure. Just like anything.
Like a calculator has the capacity to be wrong if you put bad inputs in it. With AI, you don't really know what the inputs are.
Right, because the inputs have come from all different places, and those inputs could have been incorrect from the beginning.
Right.
For sure. But I think the difference, though, is that with something that's open source, like, say, DeepSeek R1, because people will actually fork their own versions that will get better over time.
Yeah. But we're still talking about better and better calculators.
Yeah, more or less.
Because,
But more than a calculator, I would say if it's more like combining calculators with encyclopedias.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, you can ask it information like where are the locations that have the most fatal accidents within a time frame that it has access to that information in its model, like in your state or in your city. You can, there's a lot of reference information as well.
Well, so if you took a calculator and you asked it what the square root of 75 is, you could put in all the work to do the long form math to calculate the square root of 75. But wouldn't it be easier if a machine had the ability to do that way faster than you could?
Well, not only that, but also if it's just one part of a larger problem you're trying to solve.
Right. So the square root of 75 times pi to the 100th value. Right. So when I say a sophisticated calculator, I'm not trying to diminish its ability. It's got this intensely analytical ability, but it's not the super powerful. When people say generative AI, I think it gives this impression that it's somehow coming up with new ideas and creative solutions.
So it kind of does, though. It kind of does create new. The generative is usually in reference to image or video creation or music and stuff. And you've heard me create AI songs and stuff like that. And that's something way beyond just a calculation. But at some level, it is just an algorithm that's running. So it is still kind of coming back to math, to your statement, but it's doing it in a way where it's outputting something that's typically very complicated to make, like background music and vocals and things of that nature, or a graphic, an image. If you wanted to create an image for say some event that you're attending, maybe it's a food drive or a toy drive for some committee you're part of with your company and your business or stuff like that. You can, it can generate things that may not actually exist anywhere ever, but they somehow existed somewhere. It's just taking different pieces. Now it is creating something new out of it. It's just that it's never been put together that way, but it had to get that image and concept from somewhere. So there is a source to it somewhere that it's definitely utilizing. It's just,
yeah. Well, I mean, what I'm trying to get at is basically like, what is the real capacity for AI to do the doomsday type stuff that people are worried about, where putting most of the workforce out of a job. Like, I keep hearing people talking about how accountants are going to be like non-existent, and maybe that's true, but I'm kind of like the anti-doomer when it comes to AI.
Yeah, I don't think we're there. I don't think we're going to be. I mean, I'm not saying it's not going to disrupt certain industries and jobs for sure. I think probably the biggest area that it would start with is with developers and coding stuff.
But like a good developer is extremely creative and efficient and also low error rate. And like, can AI actually achieve those things reliably?
It can. It's doing that, which is why there's so much valuation within the industry. It absolutely can, because what it can do is it can actually check itself. So with the reasoning models, it's kind of interesting. What it does is it steps through how it's getting. First of all, it literally verboses on the screen what it's processing and the order of operations it's putting it in before it actually starts putting out the output. And so that's pretty interesting, because you can also interact with the reasoning output that it's giving you and say, no, you're on the right track, but I need you to change this or this. And it can adjust, it can adjust, it can adjust. And so even if there is something that's slightly off, you still saved 80 or 90, you got 80 or 90% of the way in minutes as opposed to weeks. Like with a developer, right? Like, it can create video games for you. It can create websites. It can create, and it can hyperlink everything. It can even put in images, and then it's like, yes, I think you're right on some level. We're always going to still need someone to oversee, but maybe that doesn't need to be a whole team. Maybe
So I actually
people.
Like, you sent me a deep seek local. I think this is your local.
Yeah, that one's running on one of my machines here in my home lab. Yeah.
So I thought, like, this is something I'm kind of obsessed with. So I said to it, explain self-defense law to me. And I lost the tab, so I just sent it off again. Okay. But I remember I read it through, and it did not do a great job. It did better than I think the average person would do, but I expect more out of it.
So a lot of it also has to do with your input parameters.
The prompt, right?
And so the other thing too is, the more you give it, the more it understands context about what specifically you're talking about, and it will start getting more and more refined. So if you say within the United States, within the state of Colorado, within, it'll start, the more descriptors you can give it, the better it can get, and which is kind of like pretty wild. And yeah, I've really enjoyed playing with it. I've been using AI for a long time in different other arenas as it pertains to like content development and other stuff. But the how fast things get better in just a short amount of time is what is like so amazing to me. And I think that's what's mostly like what caught me like off this, because I had this set up the week it came out. I had it running 3 days later, and then like 2 days later, the news cycle hit of like NVIDIA stock and this whole wave of news and information of DeepSeek. And I was like, holy crap, I didn't know it was that good. I was just like stoked because it's something I could run locally, which is, I'm always interested in running stuff on my own stuff.
Right. So yeah. And it was like easy and high quality and secure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like I mean, you know me, I'm going to kind of keep following this. I'm going to see how things develop. I don't think it's replacing anyone's, well, I'm not saying anyone's, but it's replacing a lot of jobs yet. But I think that over the next couple of years, we could see situations where, just like anything else, anytime you create efficiencies, and can streamline a workflow that removes physical labor hours, businesses are always going to try to look at, or at least seriously consider, just like going into Taco Bell, and they have a screen I can just walk up to and type in my order and pay, and essentially it just comes out, right? Like, that's not AI, but what I'm saying is it's where technology is streamlining the input and outputs to get the end result, which is them to get the money and me to get my tacos.
Yeah.
And that's, so I look at this as a big disruptor, though, because of it being open sourced.
So
it's a gift. It's really a gift to humanity. I mean, it's like almost like Bitcoin.
Until it takes over.
Yeah, essentially.
So what's interesting is in order to like give myself an example, I went ahead and went back into the same local DeepSeek that you have, right. And I asked the exact same question, and it gave me a much different answer the second time.
Interesting. Did you give it any different descriptors?
I don't think so. I mean, I said this as simply as I could, which was explain self-defense law to me.
But it's probably going to generalize. You didn't define a country or
no.
Yeah,
but so. you like I would assume that if I was dealing with a process, a defined process, that I would get the same answer to the same prompt.
No, because
unless I know it. I mean, it could be learning.
It is always learning. I mean, that's the whole kind of point.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But like from a scientific point of view, I want something that's repeatable. But what is the definition of repeatable when it comes to large language models?
Depends on what your definition of the word "it" is.
Sounds like Bill Clinton.
yeah. For sure.
So, and the thing, like, this is an incredibly complex question answered with asked with the least number of words possible. So I'm really challenging it with this. It's not like, define, the calculation for momentum. It's very simple, but I'm just kind of interested in like this. I think this particular topic requires some very high level understanding and some high level reasoning and an ability to explain it in a way that actually conveys the message. And that's something that I've been working on very hard for the last several years. And I wanted to see, well, how smart is this thing at doing that complex reasoning and explanation?
Yeah, for sure.
I recognize this is not a fair test, I think. For AI.
No, but keep playing with it. When you think of things, also feel free to like upload something. That's your own private login. It's on a machine that's physically in my basement over by my server rack. So I mean, like it's safe to experiment with. And you might have a PDF from work that you're doing, and you're like, hold on a second, let me throw this into DeepSeek and ask it to write me a summary based on the input that I'm feeding it, and give me some highlights or pros and cons or things that maybe it's a requirements document or something like that, and just see, because then you start understanding like, oh wow, okay, there's a deficiency here, but there's an extreme advantage on this side or something like that. You could copy and paste an email that you're struggling with how to respond to and say, I'd like to respond to this with a professional response that doesn't demean them, but I also would like to point out that there are some deficiencies within this response that need to be addressed before it can be moved to the next stage or whatever. Like, if the more context you can give it around that question or that prompt, the better it gets.
Right.
I only recommend doing this, people, if you're running it locally. Whether you're uploading documents and giving it that much information, because
don't give your data to China.
Don't give it to China.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, it's a whopper, man. It's a big deal. It is a big deal.
Well, I certainly think that it's something that we don't have any way of fully understanding its impact yet.
Oh, I don't think so. I think that even like the self-proclaimed experts don't really see. The self-proclaimed experts didn't even expect to see something come out this fast from China. China has said that they want to be leading the AI race by 2030. And here it is 2015, the first month And after DeepSeek came out, they also dropped a couple other models for reasoning and generative that are very good.
Well, it won't matter because in 2032 we're going to get hit by an asteroid. So
Again, or
there's one that might hit us in 2032. So,
Really?
but it's we're talking about the size of a school bus or something like that. So it's
Wow.
probably going to be like a local problem.
probably no problem. So don't like necessarily go out and max your credit cards.
No, unless you're in the
Alright.
path.
If
And then, yeah.
Oh yeah, unless you're in the path. Yeah, you might actually just max out your credit card to get out of the path. That's a better way to survive.
I saw a like a layout of the Earth's map with like this long squiggly line of where the asteroid might hit.
Yeah.
And it's quite a large swath of the planet. Kind of hard to plan your life around that. So
geez.
yeah.
Well, before we tap out of this episode, I wanted to play you one Daniel Tosh clip that is
Okay.
funny because it's relevant to me that I'm like training for this marathon with one of your best friends.
Mhm.
And I sent this over to him earlier. I don't know if you've heard this one.
Off topic, if you've ever bragged about doing a half marathon, you can shut the fuck up forever. When did that even become a thing? A half marathon? Ooh. I just finished reading half a book. Yeah, big thick one. Got to the middle, set it down. I'll never look at it again. I can bench press around 450 pounds 1/2 time. Just the down part. The point is, until you've shit yourself and your nipples are bleeding at mile 26, you've accomplished nothing and no one wants to hear about it.
See, now what you've done to yourself is that you have to finish the marathon now.
Man, I know. I was actually, JK and I were talking about it. And we were even talking about like, maybe we should do t-shirts and maybe try to do fundraiser for like Huntington's or something like that. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm like, that's cool. But I was like, maybe on the next one, let me just see if I can finish first to get the W, because I don't want to disappoint anyone. The only person I need to disappoint is myself this go around. I don't need anybody I don't need there any like hinging on, oh, you didn't finish, you don't get the money, your cause doesn't get funded, whatever. So I was like, he's like, yeah, actually, that's a good point. That's a good point.
You almost raised $10,000, but you didn't finish.
You didn't finish. Half don't count. And that's why I thought it was so funny. It's just the whole half marathon. You couldn't go the whole way, you just did half of it and you stopped. And I thought about I know you like reading those big, thick books, so I thought you'd get a laugh out of it.
I wouldn't say I like doing it. I've been challenged a couple of times to do it, and so I have to follow through on the challenge.
Okay, so you've been challenged. Okay.
Yeah.
So one thing that I want to mention, we don't have to, we can kind of wrap up, but this might be juicy for the next podcast, there is a multi-state lawsuit going up to sue the pharmaceuticals. This Kansas AG Attorney General.
Man, now I wish I had taken the vax.
Kris Kobach. So
thank you for being here today.
This is his press conference.
We brought together this press conference to make the following announcement, and that is today Kansas is filing a civil suit against the Pfizer Corporation under the Kansas Consumer Protection Act, seeking enhanced civil monetary penalties, damages, and injunctive relief for misleading and deceptive statements made in marketing its COVID-19 vaccine. Pfizer also violated previous consent judgments with the state of Kansas, in which Pfizer promised never to use deceptive information to market their products. Kansas's case is the first of a multi-state collaboration, with Kansas being the first of 5 states to file suit. Before I go further, let me put this in context. As we all know, during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a great deal of panic and anxiety. Many people who were elderly or who suffered from various medical conditions had already died when the vaccines became available. And when that time came, when the vaccines became available, every one of us had to make 2 decisions. Am I going to take the vaccine? And if so, which vaccine will I choose to take? And these decisions were being made in a hurry. In some ways, you could say even being made under duress. In such an environment, it is imperative that Kansans making that decision receive the truth.
So that's just the clip that I had because there's more to it. But
Do you know
that's
what the
just-
other 5 states are?
I don't know, and I'll be curious to find out. I'm sure that will be coming out soon.
Mm-hmm.
But something to follow, keep on our radar, because it's kind of hard to sue pharmaceutical companies for vaccines because they have protections from federal government for anything that's under the vaccine umbrella, specifically labeled as a vaccine. Now, Pfizer gets sued all the time, and so does Merck and Johnson & Johnson for other drugs that are not vaccines that have product liability suits against them. But vaccines are a little bit more difficult. So this will be interesting for a lot of different reasons.
Thank you to Reagan, by the way, for that.
Thank you to Reagan for that. So part of tort reform law. But what's interesting to follow, and I'm not a lawyer. I'm not giving you legal advice or anything, but I've worked in the law realm, specifically in product liability cases and things of that nature for over a decade now. And what's most interesting about these types of cases is what they find out through discovery. Because once there's a lawsuit, even if they don't win a case, there may be a lot of information that is considered proprietary or whatever that becomes exposed through discovery to create the case. And these companies have to supply the data that they're requesting, or that the judge has at least approved, agreed to. This could be research information. This could be trial information. This could be the marketing techniques, and plans and strategies. So even if
compensation,
so the juice is always in the discovery, not necessarily always the end result, which could go on for a decade, right, or longer. But what we learn from this, and that's really what I'm kind of curious about, because there's so much information that's hearsay or speculative, but this would be like documents, like actual just straight facts coming out. So I will try to keep this as part of a theme where it's applicable within the podcast, just kind of like the Jaguar stuff. I'm keeping tabs on because it's just it's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's got to be much more interesting if you actually took the vax.
Yeah.
Which I think about all the time because, as you get older, you get these like random health problems that might pop up for a day.
An eye twitch,
like a heart flutter, a dizzy spell, or maybe something more serious like an actual chronic condition.
Right.
And if you took the vaccine, you'd have to always have the question,
right,
is this because of that? Even if it's not because of that, how would you know? Yeah. So as somebody who didn't take the vaccine, I get to just wonder what the hell else is going on with my body.
Now you have to be really concerned. It's not the vax. It's something else.
Sure. But like when you got COVID, there was also that concern too about the long-term injuries, and pretty much I don't want to say everybody, but damn near everybody got COVID.
Yeah, most people I know.
So we run into this new problem where people are blaming things on COVID, where other people are blaming them on the vaccine, and there's really no way to know.
Correct.
And so if you want to believe it came from the vaccine, that's what you will believe. And if you want to believe it's long COVID, then that's what you'll believe.
And everyone that I know who also had the vaccine also got COVID.
That we can look at and say,
right,
for sure, you took the vaccine and yet you still got COVID.
Right. Which, and that was the whole selling point, was just get the vaccine and then you won't spread it. You can't get it and you can't spread it. Just get it,
You could stop wearing your mask.
You could stop wearing your mask.
Oh man, that's the thing that stood out to me the most that I remember was the promise that once you got vaccinated, you didn't have to wear a mask anymore.
And then what happens when you didn't wear a mask? You got ridiculed for not wearing your mask.
Well, I'm sure in pockets people are like, look at you like a fellow vaxxer, and then other people are like, where's your mask? Because they didn't get the memo.
Yeah. No, it is a weird time for sure. And let's, that's why I'm like, Okay. It always takes a few years and some time to go by and for some pardons to be already issued.
Yep.
Before information starts.
But here's something that's a little crazy to think about. It was 5 years ago that it started.
It was
5 years ago.
It was March of 2020. I was leaving
half a
Okeechobee
decade
Music Fest after spending 4 days with 50,000 people.
Yeah.
At a music festival, and then it was breaking out at that moment.
Yeah.
I mean, wild.
Yeah, I remember you were worried about whether or not you'd actually be able to make it home.
Because of all this weird information, like, oh, well, some states are closing their borders. I was like, what?
Yeah,
I'm in Florida.
I was hearing people concerned about military checkpoints, and I was talking to best friend JK today, and watching him in real time spin out of control about military helicopters and raids and everything, and I remember back to COVID and how crazy all my, let's just call them right-wing friends and acquaintances got because they were worried that the government was coming after them.
Martial law.
Rather than people on the left who were believing that the government was there to protect them.
Right.
And now we have like the opposite going on. Yep. And then we go back to 2008 and Occupy Wall Street, and you go back to 2001. And it's just this flip-flop of who trusts the government and who doesn't. And even though this last 2 weeks has been absolutely crazy, at the same time, I have not felt worried at all. Even though I believe I have a pretty good idea of like what's going on and what the consequences of this are, I'm not worried about it anymore. Right, I'm over allowing myself to get scared or intimidated or freaked out about it.
Yeah.
Because like, what are you going to do about it?
I'm just going to podcast about it.
I'm going to podcast. I'm going to pop a few zins. I'm going to have some whistle pig. I'm going to enjoy my family. Right. I'm going to enjoy my friends. And like, we haven't even begun to see how bad things can get. Enjoy things the way they are. Think what you want to think, live the way you want to live, but don't let other people drag you into fear and terror. That is just such an unhappy way to live.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is coming from somebody who stockpiled food, who bought radios, who bought guns, who bought ammo, I've done it all. Let's not
forget our contingency meeting points, black and gold, and all this other stuff, which they still could come in handy at some point, right?
But it was just like, hey, if this happens, then we should probably do this. Not like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to do this. It's just like let's just be a little bit prudent and make some plans, some contingencies, and hopefully it won't happen. Right. But I wasn't during COVID was the first time where I really experienced the whole, hey, everybody's going insane, but I don't have to go insane.
Yeah.
Let them go insane if they want to, but I'm not going to let them do that to me.
Sure.
So even though I think things are probably headed in a bad direction right now, I'm not going to let it bring me down.
Just keep zinning.
Keep zinning.
Hey, keep lifting.
Keep clawing. Keep lifting.
Keep lifting.
Yes.
Get those muscles strong.
Yes. Enjoy my physical ideal right now. The goal I want to get to is RFK Jr.
Dude, that's a good goal. That's a good goal. Hey, even if you can get most of the way there, that's a huge.
Dude, if I got halfway there. All right. Well, that was a good conversation.
It was. So thanks for listening, everybody. We don't have any infrastructure set up right now.
Nope.
To follow us or anything. We're just going to keep it real low key until we don't.
Until we don't.
Until that money starts rolling in. Then we'll get serious about it.
So we're on a monthly schedule at this time
right now, and we've been sticking to it. So we'll catch you in the next one.
Yeah, God knows what that's going to look like.
No idea. I have no idea.